This Karen called the cops on a dog that can't even climb stairs? 7:47 a.m. My phone exploded. Dan, the HOA president is at your ranch. She's calling 911 saying Buddy attacked her. I nearly choked. Buddy? Our ancient golden retriever who needs help getting on the couch? My 12-year-old Emma was alone with him. This woman thought she had 20 minutes to terrorize my daughter before help arrived. She didn't know I'd switched my morning route with Dave. Or that I was 2 blocks away, in uniform, with a badge. 4 minutes to change everything. Where are you watching from? Comment below. The patrol car's engine roared to life as I slammed my foot on the accelerator. My radio crackled with Dave's voice. Unit 23, I just heard the call. That's your address, isn't it? I gripped the steering wheel tighter, watching the speedometer climb. Yeah, Dave. Margaret's finally making her move. She's been watching my schedule, thinks I'm 20 minutes out. The dashboard clock showed 7:47. I had told Emma I would be home for lunch, not expecting our HOA president to launch her attack so early. Through the radio, Dave's tone shifted. Dan, I'm heading your way for backup. That woman's been planning something ever since you arrested her son for drunk driving last year. Of course, that was what this was really about. Not Buddy, not the ranch. This was revenge, served cold and calculated, targeting the most vulnerable parts of my life. The familiar streets of Crestwood Heights blurred past my windows as I navigated each turn with practiced precision. 7:48. 3 minutes. I could picture Emma now, probably clutching Buddy's collar while Margaret towered over them with that smug expression she wore like designer clothing. My daughter was only 12, still processing her mother's death from 2 years ago. Buddy was not just a pet to her. He was the last gift Sarah had given her, a puppy that had grown old alongside Emma's childhood. The golden retriever wore a collar engraved with Sarah's love, a daily reminder of what we had lost. The radio crackled again. Dispatch, this is Unit 23 responding to the animal complaint at 457 Ranch Road. ETA 2 minutes. I heard the dispatcher's surprised response. Unit 23? Records show you're scheduled for downtown patrol? A grim smile crossed my face. Schedule change, dispatch. I'm almost on scene. 7:49. The ranch came into view and my worst fears materialized before my eyes. Margaret Whitfield stood at our front gate like she owned the place, her perfectly manicured finger pointing accusingly at my daughter. 2 other officers were already there, looking uncomfortable as Margaret gestured wildly with her iPad. Emma was on her knees beside Buddy, tears streaming down her face, her arms wrapped protectively around our dog, who was, predictably, fast asleep on the grass. Even from a distance, I could see Buddy's gray muzzle and clouded eyes. The dog could barely manage stairs anymore, let alone attack anyone. Margaret's voice carried across the morning air, shrill and demanding. I want that beast removed immediately. It's a menace to our community. I have documentation. One of the officers, a rookie I recognized from the station, shifted nervously. Ma'am, the dog appears to be sleeping. 7:50. 1 minute. I cut the engine and checked my uniform one last time. Badge gleaming, radio secure, every button in place. This was not just about arriving. This was about arriving with authority. Margaret had made a critical error in judgment. She had assumed I would show up as Dan Morrison, distraught father and grieving widower. Instead, she was about to meet Officer Morrison, 15-year veteran of the Crestwood Heights Police Department. The difference would be everything. I stepped out of the patrol car with deliberate calm, my boots hitting the pavement with measured steps. The morning sun caught my badge, sending reflections dancing across Margaret's face. I watched her expression transform in real time. Confidence melted into confusion, then shock, then something that looked remarkably like fear. Officer Morrison responding to a 911 call, I announced, my voice carrying the professional tone I had perfected over years of service. I understand there's been a report of a dangerous animal at this address. What seems to be the problem? Margaret's iPad slipped from her hands, clattering onto the concrete. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You're supposed to be, she stammered, her carefully prepared script crumbling. At the station? I finished for her, allowing myself the smallest smile. Sorry to disappoint, Mrs. Whitfield. Schedule changes happen. Now, about this emergency you reported. Emma ran to me, burying her face in my uniform. I could feel her shaking as she whispered, Dad, she said Buddy bit her, but he's been sleeping the whole time. Behind her, Buddy finally stirred, lifting his head to yawn magnificently before settling back into his nap. I found myself unconsciously twisting my wedding ring, a nervous habit I had developed since Sarah's passing. The two officers relaxed visibly now that I was on scene. The rookie spoke up. "Sir, Mrs. Whitfield claims the dog attacked her this morning, but we can't find any evidence of injury or aggression." Margaret had recovered enough to snatch up her iPad, her face flushing red. "This is completely inappropriate. You cannot respond to calls at your own residence. I'll be filing a complaint." She fumbled with her device, and I noticed her hands trembling. "Mrs. Whitfield," I said calmly, "you called 911 to report an emergency. Any available unit responds to emergency calls. Now, can you show us where exactly this alleged attack occurred?" Margaret's face twisted into something between a sneer and a smile. "This isn't over, Officer Morrison," she hissed, her voice low enough that only I could hear. "I've been planning this for months. You have no idea what's coming." But what caught my attention was not her threat. It was the small red light on her phone, partially hidden by her sleeve. She was recording everything. But why was she secretly recording our conversation? The morning sun climbed higher as Margaret retreated to her silver Mercedes, but I knew she would not go far. Within minutes, Dave's patrol car pulled up, and my partner stepped out with a knowing look. "That was fast," he said, surveying the scene. 4 minutes from call to arrival. She really didn't expect you to be doing the north route today, did she?" I shook my head, watching Margaret sitting in her car, furiously typing on her phone. "Exactly. She's been studying my schedule for weeks. Helen told me she saw Margaret parked outside our house at odd hours, taking notes." Dave whistled low. "That's dedication to a grudge. All because you arrested her precious Bradley for DUI last year?" Emma had calmed down enough to speak up. "Dad, she had papers. She kept waving them around, saying Buddy violated HOA rules. She said something about him breathing too loud. Even Dave had to laugh at that one." Buddy looked at Margaret through the car window and yawned. Even the dog knew this was ridiculous. As if on cue, Margaret emerged from her car with renewed determination, marching back toward us with her iPad clutched like a weapon. "I'm not finished here," she announced, her voice carrying that false authority she had perfected over 3 years as HOA president. "Officer Rodriguez, I'm glad you're here to witness this. Officer Morrison needs to see the official HOA regulations regarding dangerous animals." She thrust the iPad toward Dave, who took it with professional patience. I watched his expression change from neutral to amused as he scrolled through whatever she was showing him. "Mrs. Whitfield," Dave said slowly, "this is a Word document. It's showing last edited at 6:47 a.m. That's this morning." Margaret's face went through several shades of red. "Those are the updated regulations. I have every right to implement new rules for the safety of our community." "Actually," I interjected, pulling out my own phone, "I have the official HOA bylaws right here. Any new regulations require a 2/3 vote from the board and a 30-day notice period to all residents." "When was this vote held, Margaret?" she sputtered, clutching her iPad tighter. That's not relevant. Your dog is a menace." He breathed at me in a threatening manner. He looked at me with aggressive intent. Dave handed the iPad back to her, his expression deadpan. "Ma'am, with all due respect, aggressive breathing is not a thing. And even if it were, it certainly wouldn't warrant a 911 call claiming an animal attack." I noticed Helen Chen approaching from her house next door, her phone held up and recording. The 65-year-old retired nurse had become our neighborhood's unofficial documentarian since her husband passed away. She often said the videos helped with the loneliness. "Did someone say they needed a witness?" Helen called out cheerfully. "Because I've been recording since 5 o'clock this morning. Helps me remember things at my age." Margaret whirled around to face her. "That's illegal. You can't record people without their consent." Helen smiled sweetly. "Actually, dear, we're on a public street, and my doorbell camera captures the sidewalk. Perfectly legal." "Would you like to see this morning's footage?" Margaret's confident facade cracked slightly. "That won't be necessary," she said quickly. Too quickly. Dave and I exchanged glances. "Actually," Dave said, "I'd like to see that footage, Mrs. Chen, for the official report." Helen's eyes twinkled as she approached, her floral housecoat billowing in the morning breeze. "Of course, Officer Rodriguez, always happy to help law enforcement." Dave's entire demeanor shifted as he watched Helen's footage. "You know what, Dan? I'm tired of this." His voice carried a weight I had not heard before. "Last year, she called 911 on me for parking 2 inches over my own driveway. I spent 20 minutes explaining to dispatch that I was parked on my own property." He turned to face Margaret directly. You've weaponized emergency services against your neighbors for the last time. Margaret's mouth fell open at Dave's sudden stance. Officer Rodriguez, I'll have you know that maintaining standards... But Dave was not finished. Standards? You mean harassment? I'm done being neutral, Margaret. This ends now. The transformation was complete. Dave had chosen his side, and it was not hers. Margaret attempted to regain control of the situation. This is ridiculous. I'm calling an emergency HOA meeting for tonight, 7 p.m. sharp. We'll settle this properly with a vote to ban all dangerous animals from our community. She glared at me with undisguised venom. Your badge won't protect you in a democratic vote, Morrison. The residents will side with safety over your emotional attachment to that creature. Emma stepped forward, her 12-year-old frame trying to look imposing. Buddy is 8 years old. He has arthritis. He can't even catch a tennis ball anymore. Margaret ignored her completely, focusing her attention on me. 7 p.m., Morrison. Don't be late. Oh, and I suggest you start looking for a new home for that animal. After tonight, keeping him here will cost you $500 per day in fines. As Margaret stormed back to her car for the final time, Helen pulled me aside. Her usual cheerful demeanor shifted to something more serious. Dan, there's something else on my video you need to see. Margaret met with someone at 5 o'clock this morning, right by your fence. She turned her phone toward me, and I watched the grainy but clear footage. A van had pulled up in the pre-dawn darkness. The driver got out and shook hands with Margaret, accepting what looked like cash. The company logo on the van was partially visible in the streetlight. Green! I could make out the first letters, and then my blood ran cold. The man getting out of the van was Tom Brennan, Margaret's brother-in-law. I knew him from a case 3 years ago. His company, Green Kill Pest Control, had lost their license for using banned chemicals. Helen, I said slowly, I know that man, and if he's involved... She showed me the screen. My blood ran cold. How did Margaret know him? The Crestwood Heights Community Center buzzed with 200 voices as neighbors filed into the main hall. I had seen this room host birthday parties, wedding receptions, and holiday celebrations. Tonight, it felt more like a courtroom, with Margaret presiding from behind the HOA board table like a judge preparing to pass sentence. Emma sat beside me in the front row, her hand gripping mine tightly. Buddy lay at our feet, blissfully unaware that his fate was being decided by a room full of people who barely knew him. Helen had positioned herself strategically in the third row, her phone already recording. Dave stood by the door in civilian clothes, having come straight from his shift to support us. The room smelled of coffee and judgment, a combination that made my stomach turn. I twisted my wedding ring nervously, feeling the weight of Sarah's absence in this moment when our family was under attack. Margaret called the meeting to order with excessive enthusiasm, banging her gavel 3 times when once would have sufficed. Thank you all for attending this emergency session, she began, her voice dripping with false concern. As you know, the safety of our community is my top priority. Tonight we address a serious threat that has been allowed to persist for far too long. She clicked a button on her laptop, and a PowerPoint presentation blazed to life on the projection screen. The title read, "The Hidden Dangers in Our Neighborhood," in blood-red letters. I had to admire her theatrical flair, even as I despised her methods. The first slide showed a blurry photo of Buddy in our yard. The angle and lighting made him look larger and more menacing than his arthritic 8-year-old body could ever manage. This, Margaret announced dramatically, is what threatens our children, our pets, and our property values. The presentation continued with slide after slide of misleading information, statistics about dog attacks that had nothing to do with golden retrievers, photos of other dogs that looked vaguely like Buddy but were clearly younger and more aggressive, a map of our neighborhood with our ranch marked in red like a cancer that needed to be removed. The 20th slide showed a video, grainy and shot from a distance. This footage, Margaret said, was captured this morning at 5:47 a.m. Watch carefully. The video played, showing Buddy in our yard. He appeared to be snarling, his mouth open and teeth visible. Several people in the audience gasped. Emma jumped to her feet before I could stop her. "That's not growling," she said, her voice carrying surprising strength. "Mrs. Whitfield, why were you filming our house at 5:47 in the morning?" "I know, because I was awake, getting ready for school." Buddy was yawning. He always yawns when he first wakes up. The room stirred with murmurs. Margaret's face flushed, but she pressed on. "Regardless of what the child thinks she saw, the fact remains that this animal poses a risk, which is why I propose the following motion. Effective immediately, all dogs over 50 pounds should be banned from Crestwood Heights. Furthermore, any household currently harboring such animals will face a daily fine of $500 until the animal is removed. The murmurs grew louder. Many families in our neighborhood had large dogs. Margaret was overplaying her hand, but she seemed too caught up in her vendetta to notice. "That's insane," someone called out from the back. It was Tom Bradley, whose family had 2 Labradors. "You can't just ban dogs because you don't like them." Margaret's gavel came down hard. "Order! We'll have a proper discussion after I present all the evidence." But Helen was already standing, her phone in hand. "I'd like to present some evidence too," she said sweetly, "since we're sharing videos from this morning." Margaret's expression faltered slightly. "This is not an open forum, Mrs. Chen. Please sit down." Helen remained standing. "Actually, according to HOA bylaws, any member can present relevant information during an emergency meeting. I have video from 5 a.m. this morning. Very relevant information." She connected her phone to the projection system before Margaret could object. The room watched as the footage played. There was Margaret, clearly visible in the streetlight, meeting with a van. The logo was partially visible, GREE, and then the rest was obscured, but I knew what it said. Greenkill Pest Control. Margaret was handing cash to the driver, then pointing directly at our ranch. "Interesting timing," Helen commented. "Why would our HOA president be meeting with a pest control company in secret hours before calling the police about a dog?" The room erupted. People were talking over each other, voices rising with questions and accusations. Margaret banged her gavel repeatedly, her face now deep crimson. "Order! Order! That video proves nothing. I have every right to arrange for pest control services." But the damage was done. Dave stepped forward from his position by the door. "Actually, I recognize that company logo. Greenkill Pest Control had their license revoked 3 years ago for using illegal chemicals. They're not supposed to be operating in California at all." The revelation sent another wave of chaos through the room. In the middle of it all, Buddy had fallen asleep, his gentle snores barely audible over the commotion. Someone in the back row called out, "Most dangerous nap I've ever seen!" A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd, breaking the tension momentarily. Margaret's carefully orchestrated meeting was falling apart, and she knew it. "This is a conspiracy!" Margaret shrieked, her composure completely shattered. "Morrison has turned you all against me. Fine! If you won't see reason, we'll settle this in court. I have documentation of every violation, every complaint, every single time that mongrel has disturbed the peace of our community." I stood slowly, keeping my voice calm despite the anger boiling inside me. "Margaret, what violations? Buddy is licensed, vaccinated, and has never bitten anyone in his 8 years of life. You've provided no real evidence, just edited videos and false accusations. What's this really about?" She turned to face me, and for a moment her mask slipped completely. Pure hatred flashed in her eyes. "You know exactly what this is about," she hissed. "You destroyed my family, my son's future. All for what? A few drinks? He was going to Stanford. Now he's at community college because of his record. You ruined everything." The room had gone silent, everyone hanging on her words. Emma squeezed my hand tighter. "So you decided to go after my daughter's dog?" I asked quietly. "A gift from her dead mother? That's your revenge?" Margaret seemed to realize she had said too much. She straightened, trying to reclaim her composure. "The vote is postponed, pending further review. This meeting is adjourned." She grabbed her laptop and papers, shoving them haphazardly into her designer bag. As people began to file out, discussing what they had witnessed in hushed tones, Margaret stopped beside me. Her voice was low, meant only for my ears. "You have no idea what I'm capable of, Morrison. This was just the opening act." She glanced down at Buddy, who was still sleeping peacefully, then back at me. "Enjoy your last few days with that mutt. I promise you, they'll be memorable." The next morning I woke to Emma screaming, "Dad, the grass is dead, and Buddy won't eat. Why was there a skull and crossbones symbol on our lawn? Dad, the grass is dead, and Buddy won't eat." Emma's scream pierced through my morning grogginess like a knife. I bolted from bed and ran outside to find her kneeling beside Buddy, who was lying on his side, breathing heavily. A perfect square of dead grass surrounded his favorite napping spot, the earth scorched and blackened as if someone had poured acid on it. In the center of the dead patch, barely visible but unmistakable to someone who knew what to look for, was the outline of a skull and crossbones. My hands shook as I checked Buddy's gums. They were pale, too pale. Emma, get the car keys. We're taking Buddy to the emergency vet, now. As I lifted our golden retriever into my arms, his dead weight made my heart sink. This was not the sluggish movements of an old dog. This was something far worse. The collar reading, Sarah's love, felt like it was burning against my hands. The drive to the veterinary hospital was the longest 10 minutes of our lives. Emma sat in the back, cradling Buddy's head in her lap, whispering to him through her tears. "Stay with us, boy. Please stay with us. You're all I have left of Mom." I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, fighting the urge to speed recklessly. Getting pulled over would only delay help for Buddy. The vet took one look at him and rushed him to the back. "Possible poisoning," she said tersely. "We'll run tests immediately." The waiting room felt like a tomb. Emma curled up against me, her face buried in my shoulder. 2 hours passed before the vet emerged with a grim expression. He ingested a banned pesticide. It's been illegal for years. He's stable for now, but... She paused, choosing her words carefully. This was intentional. Someone wanted to hurt him. I twisted my wedding ring, the nervous habit returning with the stress. "Doctor, please do everything you can. Cost doesn't matter. And can you document everything? This is evidence." She nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Of course. And Officer Morrison? The concentration wasn't lethal. Someone wanted him sick, not dead. This was calculated to cause maximum distress." Back at the ranch, I found Emma sitting on our porch, staring at the dead grass. She had something in her hands. "Dad, I found this in the trash can by the gate." It was a notebook, water-damaged and dirty, but the handwriting inside was unmistakably Margaret's. My hands trembled as I read her meticulous planning. Day 1, call 911 during shift change. Day 4, chemical treatment via Tom. Day 7, force emergency vote. Day 14, offer to buy ranch below market value. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. This was never about Buddy. This was about our land. I sat down heavily beside Emma, the weight of it all crushing down on me. "She wants the ranch," I said quietly. "Someone wants to develop it, and she's helping them force us out." Emma's face hardened with determination. "She can't have it. Mom is here. This is our home." Her strength amazed me, this 12-year-old girl who had already lost so much. 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch, watching the stars and thinking about Sarah. She had died in 4 minutes after the accident. Just enough time for me to reach the hospital and hold her hand. 4 minutes to say goodbye. 4 minutes that changed everything. Now someone was trying to take away what she had left us. I went inside and found Emma, curled up with Buddy's favorite toy. Even in sleep, she clutched it like a lifeline. My phone buzzed. Dave had sent a text. "Got info on the van. Registered to Tom Brennan, Margaret's brother-in-law. Same guy who lost his pest control license. Want me to dig deeper?" The next morning brought relief. The vet called to say Buddy was improving. "He's a fighter," she said. "Another day and he can come home." When we visited, Buddy's tail gave weak wags at the sight of us. Emma hugged him gently, tears streaming down her face. "Don't ever scare us like that again," she whispered. The vet handed me a folder. The toxicology report. That pesticide has been banned since 2019. The only way to obtain it would be through illegal channels. I studied the report, my mind racing. Who would have access to banned chemicals? Dave called while we were driving home. "Dan, you need to hear this. Tom Brennan just walked into the station. He's scared and wants to make a deal. Says Margaret threatened his family if he didn't help. She promised him $50,000 to poison your lawn." My grip tightened on the phone. "Is he willing to testify?" Already got his confession on video. "But Dan, there's more. Margaret's been taking payments from Pinnacle Development. They want your ranch for a shopping complex. She gets a $200,000 finder's fee for each property she delivers." The scope of her scheme was staggering. "What about the other families who left?" I asked. Dave's voice was grim. "The Petersons' koi pond was poisoned with the same chemical. The Williamses had mysterious vandalism, all sold cheap to buyers connected to Pinnacle. She's done this at least 3 times. Emma had been listening quietly. Now she spoke up. "Dad, her notebook mentions other names. The Johnsons, the Chens, they're next." I felt sick. How many families had Margaret terrorized? How many had she driven from their homes? My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Officer Morrison, this is Judge Coleman's office. Mrs. Whitfield has filed a civil suit against you for defamation and harassment. Court date is set for tomorrow at 9 a.m. So Margaret was going on the offensive. Fine, I had ammunition of my own now. Dave, can you bring Tom to testify? I asked. Already arranged. And Dan? I found something else. Margaret's husband Richard has some interesting clients, several connected to illegal chemical distribution. That evening, I sat with Emma as she did homework, trying to maintain normalcy. She looked up at me suddenly. Dad, do you think Mom would be proud of us for fighting back? I pulled her close. She absolutely would. Your mom never backed down from bullies. Emma nodded, then pulled out her phone. I've been recording things, Dad. Every time Margaret comes by, every threat she makes. Mom taught me to document everything. My brilliant, brave daughter. Sarah lived on in her in so many ways. As night fell, I prepared for tomorrow's battle. Margaret thought she could use the legal system against me. She had no idea what was coming. The vet's words echoed in my mind as I reviewed the evidence. This chemical has been banned since 2019. How did they even get it? That's when I remembered Margaret's husband is a defense attorney, but who were his clients? The courtroom was smaller than I expected for a civil case. Margaret sat with her husband Richard at the plaintiff's table, looking confident in her designer suit. She was suing me for defamation and harassment, seeking damages and a restraining order. I sat alone at the defendant's table, having chosen to represent myself. In the gallery, Dave waited with Tom Brennan, who looked like he might bolt at any moment. Helen was there too, her phone suspiciously positioned in her purse. Emma sat in the front row, trying to look brave. Judge Coleman entered, and we all rose. She was known for her no-nonsense approach and sharp legal mind. Margaret's smile suggested she thought this would be easy. She was wrong. Richard stood first, his expensive suit impeccable. Your Honor, my client has been subjected to a campaign of harassment by the defendant. He has turned the community against her, damaged her reputation, and made wild accusations without proof. Richard presented his case smoothly, painting Margaret as a dedicated HOA president just trying to maintain standards. He showed photos of our unkept ranch, complaints from anonymous neighbors about Buddy, and Margaret's injuries from the alleged dog attack. Furthermore, Richard continued, the defendant used his position as a police officer to intimidate my client during what should have been a simple HOA matter. He presented a medical report. This documents the trauma and injury my client suffered from the defendant's vicious animal. Judge Coleman examined the document. I don't see a doctor's signature on this report, Mr. Whitfield. Richard shuffled papers. Dr. Peterson was unable to attend today. The judge frowned but continued. Officer Morrison, do you have counsel? I stood. I'll be representing myself, Your Honor. Margaret smirked. She thought I was out of my depth. Time to prove her wrong. Your Honor, I began, I'd like to present evidence that not only refutes the plaintiff's claims, but reveals a criminal conspiracy. Richard jumped up. Objection! This is a civil matter. Judge Coleman waved him down. I'll determine what's relevant. Continue, Officer Morrison. I started with Tom Brennan's video confession, playing it on the courtroom screen. The room watched in silence as Margaret's brother-in-law detailed how she had paid him to poison our property with banned chemicals. Margaret's confident expression began to crack. She'd promised me $50,000. Tom's voice filled the room. Said once the dog was sick, they'd have to move. She already had buyers lined up through Pinnacle Development. Richard objected again, but the judge was absorbed in the testimony. I presented the veterinary report next, explaining how Buddy had been poisoned with a pesticide banned since 2019. The only way to obtain this chemical, I explained, would be through illegal sources. Which brings me to this. I presented Dave's research on Richard's client list. Mr. Whitfield has represented several individuals convicted of illegal chemical distribution. One of them, Marcus Webb, was found with a stockpile of the exact pesticide used on my property. The courtroom stirred. Judge Coleman leaned forward. Are you suggesting Mr. Whitfield provided access to illegal substances? I chose my words carefully. I'm presenting a pattern of connections, Your Honor. The plaintiff had means, motive, and opportunity. Next came Emma's recordings. My daughter's clear voice played through the speakers as she had captured Margaret making threats, discussing her plans with others, and celebrating when Buddy got sick. Once that mutt is gone, Margaret's recorded voice said, Morrison will be so broken he'll sell cheap, just like the Petersons, just like the Williamses. Richard was on his feet again. This is inadmissible, recorded without consent. But Judge Coleman shook her head. These appear to be recorded in public spaces or from the defendant's own property. I'll allow it. I presented Margaret's notebook next, the one Emma had found. The judge read it with growing concern. The detailed plan to force us out, the list of other families targeted, The financial arrangements with Pinnacle Development, it was all there in Margaret's own handwriting. Dave testified about the pattern of families forced out of Crestwood Heights, all with large properties, all selling below market value after mysterious incidents. At least 3 families in the past 2 years, Your Honor, all experienced vandalism or pet poisoning before selling to buyers connected to Pinnacle Development. The evidence was overwhelming, but I saved the best for last. Your Honor, I'd like to call Tom Brennan to testify. Tom took the stand nervously. Under oath, he revealed everything. Margaret's threats against his family if he didn't cooperate, the source of the banned chemicals through Richard's connections, the payments from Pinnacle Development. She said she'd done this before, Tom testified. Said no one ever fought back because she had dirt on everyone in the neighborhood. Judge Coleman had heard enough. Mr. and Mrs. Whitfield, please stand. They rose, Margaret's face pale. Not only am I dismissing this lawsuit with prejudice, but I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal investigation. The evidence presented suggests conspiracy, extortion, and use of banned substances. I'm also issuing a restraining order preventing Mrs. Whitfield from coming within 500 feet of the Morrison family. Margaret exploded. This is ridiculous. He's lying. They're all lying. But Richard grabbed her arm, whispered urgently in her ear. They knew it was over. As we filed out of the courtroom, Margaret managed to get close enough to hiss at me. You think you've won. This isn't over. I still have cards to play. Dave heard her and stepped between us. Ma'am, you just threatened him again. In front of witnesses, again. But Margaret just smiled that cold smile and walked away with Richard. Outside, Emma hugged me tight. We did it, Dad. Buddy's safe. I hugged her back, relief washing over me. But something nagged at me. Margaret's threat didn't sound empty. She was planning something. Helen approached with congratulations, but I was distracted by a text on my phone. From the vet. Buddy's ready to come home. He's made a full recovery. At least something was going right. We drove to pick up Buddy, Emma chattering excitedly about never having to worry about Margaret again. But as we pulled into our driveway that evening, I noticed something odd. A van parked across the street, someone sitting inside with a clipboard. That night, a man knocked on our door. I'm Dr. Peterson, animal behavioral specialist, court-ordered evaluation of your dog. Emma whispered. Dad, that's the guy from the toothpaste commercial. What was Margaret's final play? Emma was absolutely right. The man at our door was the same actor from the Bright Smile toothpaste commercial that aired every morning during breakfast. Same gleaming white teeth, same practiced smile, same perfectly styled hair. But now, he wore a white lab coat and carried an official-looking clipboard. Dr. Peterson, licensed animal behaviorist, he said, extending his hand. I'm here for the court-mandated evaluation of your dog. I kept my expression neutral, but my mind was racing. There had been no court order for an evaluation. This was Margaret's doing. Please, come in, I said calmly. Can I see your credentials in the court order? He fumbled in his briefcase, producing a laminated card that looked like it came from a home printer. Of course, I'm fully certified in canine behavioral analysis. Emma had already run to the living room where the TV was on. Dad, she called, he's on TV right now. Sure enough, there he was in the commercial, holding up toothpaste with the same theatrical smile. The doctor heard it too, and his confident demeanor wavered. That must be someone who looks like me, he stammered. I decided to test him. So, Dr. Peterson, what's the normal heart rate for a golden retriever? He straightened up, trying to regain authority. Approximately 200 beats per minute. Emma giggled from the doorway. Even she knew it was 60 to 100. Interesting, I said. And how long have you been practicing? He cleared his throat. 5 years. I've evaluated hundreds of dangerous dogs. Buddy chose that moment to wander over, tail wagging slowly. He sniffed the visitor's shoes, then promptly lay down and began snoring. The expert made a show of observing him, scribbling notes. Ah, yes, clear signs of aggressive sleeping disorder. I couldn't help myself. Aggressive sleeping disorder? Is that a recognized condition? He blinked rapidly. Oh yes, very serious. Often leads to dangerous napping. Emma had her phone out, recording everything. Smart girl, just like her mother. Dr. Peterson? I said. I'm going to need to verify your credentials. What's your license number? Sweat beaded on his forehead. I don't have it memorized. It's at my office. I pulled out my phone. No problem. I'll just call the state licensing board. They can verify it quickly. That did it. His shoulders slumped into feet. Okay, I'm not really a doctor. I'm Brad Stevens. I'm an actor. He pulled off the fake glasses he'd been wearing. Margaret Whitfield is my aunt. She promised me $5,000 to come here and say your dog was dangerous. I needed the money. Commercial work has been slow. Emma stepped forward, still recording. So you were going to lie about Buddy? He's old and sweet. Brad couldn't meet her eyes. I'm sorry, kid. I didn't know there was a real family involved. Aunt Margaret made it sound like you were terrible people. I sat down across from him. Brad, you realize impersonating a medical professional is a crime, even a veterinary one? He nodded miserably. I know. I'm an idiot. She said it would be easy money. No one would get hurt. But looking at you and your daughter, seeing that old dog, I can't do it. I made a decision. Brad, you're going to write down everything. Margaret's offer, your relationship, and any other schemes she mentioned. Then you're going to come to the HOA meeting tonight and tell everyone the truth. His eyes widened. She'll destroy me. Her husband represents half the casting directors in Los Angeles. But Dave chose that moment to arrive, having gotten my earlier text. Mr. Stevens, he said, showing his badge, we can protect you from retaliation, but we need your cooperation. Brad looked between us, then at Emma, still holding her phone, then at Buddy, snoring peacefully. Okay, he said finally. I'll do it. I'll tell the truth. That evening, the Crestwood Heights Community Center was packed. Word had spread about the fake expert and everyone wanted answers. The interim HOA president, Robert, called the meeting to order. Before we begin, Robert said nervously, we have someone who needs to address the community. Brad stood up, looking like he wanted to disappear. The entire room recognized him from various commercials. Hi everyone, I'm Brad Stevens. You might know me from the toothpaste ads or the hemorrhoid cream commercial. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd. I'm here because I did something wrong. My aunt, Margaret Whitfield, paid me to pretend to be an animal expert. She wanted me to say the Morrison's dog was dangerous. The room erupted in angry murmurs. Brad continued, his voice stronger now, but that's not all. She told me she's done this before. She keeps files on everyone in the neighborhood. Blackmail material. She stores it all in a unit at Secure Store on 5th Street. Unit 247. The revelation sent shockwaves through the room. People were whispering urgently, probably wondering what Margaret had on them. Dave stood up. We'll be getting a warrant for that storage unit. If anyone has been threatened or blackmailed by Margaret Whitfield, please see me after the meeting. Helen raised her hand. I motion to permanently ban Margaret Whitfield from any position in the Crestwood Heights HOA. The vote was unanimous. Furthermore, someone else called out, I motion to remove all pet restrictions beyond county requirements. Another unanimous vote. Buddy was officially safe forever. As the meeting wound down, Brad approached me. Officer Morrison, I'm really sorry. She made it sound so simple. Just tell a little lie, get paid, no harm done. I looked at the struggling actor. Brad, you did the right thing in the end. That matters. He nodded gratefully and hurried away. Neighbors surrounded us after the meeting, sharing stories of Margaret's reign of terror. Fines for grass height varied by half an inch. Complaints were filed for children's bicycles being the wrong color. Harassment over holiday decorations being up one day past her arbitrary deadline. We were all terrified of her, Mrs. Chen admitted. She seemed to know everyone's secrets. The storage unit would later reveal the extent of Margaret's surveillance. Photos of neighbors taken without consent, financial records obtained through Richard's connections, and even recordings of private conversations. She had built an empire of fear in our suburban paradise. Emma and I drove home in peaceful silence, Buddy asleep in the back seat. Dad, Emma said finally, why do people like Margaret exist? I thought about it carefully. Sometimes people who feel powerless in their own lives try to control others. It makes them feel important. She nodded thoughtfully. I feel sorry for her. She must be really unhappy. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed with Buddy curled at her feet, my phone buzzed. Work email. I opened it and my blood ran cold. Officer Morrison, report to Internal Affairs tomorrow at 0800 hours regarding complaint filed about misuse of uniform and resources in a personal matter. Failure to appear will result in suspension. I stared at the message. Margaret's final card. She must have filed the complaint before her arrest, knowing it would be processed regardless. The email continued. Complainant provided video evidence of you responding to a personal address in uniform during scheduled patrol hours. The video from her hidden phone. She had planned for this possibility all along. How did Margaret know about the one policy that could end my career? My hands were steady as I buttoned my dress uniform at 7:30 a.m., but my mind raced. Internal Affairs at 8 o'clock. Margaret's final trap. Sprung from her jail cell. She had filed the complaint before her arrest, and now the bureaucratic machine ground forward regardless of her criminal status. Emma watched from the doorway, worry etched on her young face. "Dad, what if they fire you?" I knelt down to her level. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together, just like Mom taught us." Buddy patted over, resting his gray muzzle on my knee. At least he was healthy again, thanks to everything we had fought for. I kissed Emma goodbye and headed to the station, arriving at 7:55. 5 minutes early, as always. The Internal Affairs office felt like a tomb. Captain Patricia Wells sat behind her desk, Margaret's complaint file open before her. To my surprise, Margaret herself sat in the corner with a new lawyer, having made bail yesterday. She wore an ankle monitor, but her smirk remained intact. "Officer Morrison," Captain Wells began, her voice neutral. "Mrs. Whitfield has filed a serious complaint. She alleges you abused your position by responding to a personal matter while on duty in uniform." The lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman named Stevens, placed a tablet on the desk. "We have video evidence of Officer Morrison arriving at his personal residence in his patrol vehicle, in full uniform, to intervene in what was clearly a civil matter." The video played, showing me stepping out of my patrol car that Monday morning. Margaret's hidden phone had captured everything. "This is a clear violation of Department Policy 2.3, Stevens continued. "Using official resources for personal benefit." Captain Wells studied the video, then looked at me. "Officer Morrison, you have 4 minutes to explain before I make my determination regarding suspension." 4 minutes. The irony wasn't lost on me. I stood, pulling out my own phone. "Captain, I'd like you to hear the actual 911 call from that morning." The room filled with the sound of the dispatch recording. Margaret's voice, clear and urgent. "This is Margaret Whitfield at 457 Ranch Road. There's a dangerous animal attacking people. We need help immediately." The dispatcher's response. "Are there injuries? Is anyone in immediate danger?" Margaret again. "Yes, the animal is vicious. The owner isn't home. Please hurry." But then came the crucial part, the dispatcher. "Ma'am, can you describe the animal?" Margaret. "It's just send someone. Officer needs assistance. We need an officer's assistance." Captain Wells raised an eyebrow. The slip was subtle but significant. Stevens tried to interrupt, but the captain held up a hand. The recording continued. "Units be advised," the dispatcher announced. "Possible 415 at 457 Ranch Road. Caller mentioned officer needs assistance." I paused the recording. "Captain, officer needs assistance is our emergency code. Any unit nearby responds immediately, regardless of assignment." Captain Wells leaned forward. "Continue." "Mrs. Whitfield knew exactly what she was saying," I explained. "She studied police codes. She knew saying those words would generate an emergency response. She also knew my schedule, knew I was supposed to be downtown. What she didn't know was that I had switched routes with Officer Rodriguez that morning." Dave had come in quietly, standing by the door. "Captain, if I may?" Wells nodded. Dave stepped forward. "I can confirm the schedule change. Dan covered my north route so I could take my son to a doctor's appointment. It was a last-minute switch, not in the official system yet." Margaret's smirk faltered. Stevens shuffled papers nervously. Regardless, he still responded to his own address. But I wasn't done. "Captain, there's more. Helen Chen, our neighbor, has doorbell camera footage from that morning." I connected my phone to the room's screen. The video showed Margaret at 5 a.m. practicing her 911 call. Her voice carried clearly in the quiet morning. "I need to say officer needs assistance. That'll make Morrison rush here in uniform. Then I'll have him on video misusing his position." The room went silent. Margaret's face had gone pale. Even her lawyer looked shocked. The video continued. Margaret was on her phone, talking to someone. "Bradley?" "Yes, it's all set. Morrison will be here in full uniform because he'll think it's a real emergency. I'll get it all on video. 20 minutes should be enough time to traumatize his kid before any cop shows up." "What do you mean, which Morrison? The cop who arrested you, idiot, my son." Captain Wells's expression had turned to stone. "Mrs. Whitfield, you deliberately made a false emergency call. You used emergency codes to manipulate our response system. That's a federal offense." Margaret tried to speak, but her lawyer grabbed her arm, shaking her head. The captain continued, "Furthermore, this recording indicates premeditation and malicious intent." But there was one more piece of evidence. Helen had given me something that morning. "Captain, Mrs. Whitfield mentioned 20 minutes. She knew exactly how long it would take for a unit to arrive from downtown. But she didn't know I was only 4 minutes away." I played the final recording. Margaret's voice filled with panic when I arrived. "You're supposed to be downtown. I checked the schedules. This isn't possible." Captain Wells stood. Mrs. Whitfield, you're under arrest for filing a false emergency report, misuse of emergency services, and attempting to frame a police officer. As Margaret was led away in handcuffs again, she screamed, "He ruined my son's life! He deserved this!" Stevens gathered her papers quickly. "We'll be filing appeals," but Captain Wells cut her off. "Counselor, your client just confessed to a premeditated attempt to manipulate emergency services. I suggest you focus on keeping her out of federal prison." After they left, Captain Wells turned to me. "Officer Morrison, this complaint is dismissed. Furthermore, you showed remarkable restraint in a situation designed to provoke you. There will be a commendation in your file." Relief washed over me like a wave. My career was safe. My family was safe. That evening, the entire neighborhood gathered at our ranch for a celebration barbecue. Dave manned the grill while Helen poured her famous sweet tea. Emma played with the other kids, Buddy trotting slowly but happily beside them. The Johnsons brought potato salad. The Chens brought their famous dumplings. Even Brad Stevens showed up with a cake that said, "Sorry, I pretended to be a vet." It was a real community again, free from Margaret's reign of terror. Robert, the interim HOA president, clinked his glass for attention. "I motion that we officially thank Officer Morrison for standing up to tyranny." The cheer that went up could probably be heard 3 blocks away. As the sun set, I found myself standing under Sarah's oak tree. Emma joined me, slipping her hand into mine. "Mom would have loved this," she said softly. "All the neighbors together, everyone happy. Buddy healthy and playing." I squeezed her hand. "She's here with us, baby. And every brave thing you did, every recording you made, you're just like her." My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Hello, Officer Morrison. I'm the new HOA president at Oakdale Estates. We have concerns about your friend Helen Chen's fence. She's applied to move here. Perhaps we should discuss this over coffee?" I showed it to Dave, who laughed. "Seriously? Another one?" Helen overheard and came over. "Oh, that's from Margaret's cousin Diana. She called me yesterday. Very interested in my fence measurements." We all looked at each other, then burst out laughing. I typed back, "Happy to meet. FYI, I can be anywhere in Oakdale in exactly 4 minutes, in full uniform." The response was immediate. "Never mind. Welcome to the neighborhood, Mrs. Chen." As the party wound down, I watched Emma teaching the younger kids how to properly document HOA violations on their phones. "Always record everything," she said seriously. "You never know when you'll need evidence." My daughter, the 12-year-old legal expert, Sarah would have been so proud. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed with Buddy snoring at her feet, she asked, "Dad, are we really safe now?" I kissed her forehead. "We are. And you know what? If anyone tries anything like this again, you'll be there in 4 minutes," she finished with a grin. "Always, baby, always." 6 months later, Margaret was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison for false emergency reporting, conspiracy, and extortion. But that night, we didn't know that yet. All we knew was that we were home, we were together, and Buddy was softly snoring at the foot of Emma's bed, his collar still reading, "Sarah's Love."